Hi, I'm Shelley Wood. You might know me from shelleywood.com. This is my tiny sewing room where I make doll clothes sewing videos. Today I'm going to show you how to make a casing like you would use for a skirt. You can see my American Girl Kaya doll wearing one that I recently designed. But casings are also used for elastic waist pants like G.I. Joe is wearing, and my 17-inch Barbie is wearing shorts with an elastic waist. But for a skirt, you'll start with a swatch of fabric, and you'll also need some elastic. You'll want to compare the elastic to the doll and say, is this the size I want? Because elastic comes in many sizes. Wrap it around her and kind of estimate what would help the elastic fit snugly. Then allow for just a little bit of extra so that you have a seam allowance on the elastic. Now if you notice when I bring these together, there's just a little bit of extra there to make sure I have a seam allowance. You'll want to make sure you've got that seam allowance whether you measure with a tape measure or whether you cut the elastic. Now let's talk a little about the casing itself. So when you form a casing, you're going to fold fabric twice and then kind of lay your elastic over the top and pin before stitching to make sure that your elastic allows plenty of room inside the casing. You need the elastic to fit inside that casing, and the pins help you decide that. I sometimes have to repin, and that's normal stuff. Once you've got your elastic cut and you start looking at it against the casing, you'll see that it needs some adjustment. And here you see that I'm kind of planning, readjusting, looking at it again. Yep, that looks like it'll work. It's also a good idea to kind of lay the elastic against the casing to see how it fits. Now I'm showing you as I point here that the casing has a fold to it, and you can use a whip stitch if you like to stitch by hand. You can also use your sewing machine to stitch that. With doll clothes, the smaller it is, the more I like to stitch by hand, but for bigger dolls like 18-inch dolls, I often use my sewing machine. You're going to take your safety pin and attach it at one end of the elastic like you see here. Find a safety pin that you're sure will fit inside the casing. I've had that problem before where I needed a smaller safety pin. You make sure that safety pin seals nice and tight, and then again lay the elastic up against the casing to see if you think it's going to fit. Now here I'm using a see-through fabric, so you can see right through the fabric and see that safety pin going in, kind of get a feel for how the elastic looks inside the casing as I push this safety pin right through that fold in the fabric where the casing is. So you want to get a nice firm grip on your safety pin, start pushing, and you're going to wad up fabric like this. As you push it through, it just kind of wads up at the top. Keep pushing it through and sending that elastic. Now as you get toward the end of the elastic, there's a concern that you can lose the elastic inside the casing. So what we do when we get toward the end is we very carefully bring it to the edge. Watch how slowly I'm moving this elastic through, just a little bit at a time until I've got just a nub on the edge there. And then I lift it up, holding firmly with with my one hand, both fingers, push a straight pin all the way through the fabric and the elastic, and then back out through the fabric and the elastic. Now that straight pin is going to hold the elastic in place while you push the safety pin the rest of the way through. And again, you wad up the fabric, keep pushing the safety pin, wadding the fabric as you go. it's okay that it looks kind of wrinkly like that. That's actually what we're going for here. Now, when you get to the other end, you've still got that one safety pin holding the elastic in place. Don't take that out, you'll regret it. And then you've got your safety pin on the other end. You have to kind of tug that safety pin out a little bit so you can remove it later. But before I do that, you're going to want to put another straight pin through the fabric and elastic. Make sure you catch the elastic and then back through. Now, you'll notice how I did a little tug. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Remove the safety pin, tug on both ends, and what this does is it makes all of the waves in the fabric even. So instead of having all of them wadded up at one end like that, if you give it one tug, it evens out the wrinkles in the elastic waistline. Now the next thing I do is I bring together the two ends that have the straight pins. Don't remove those straight pins yet. And again, this is primarily for a skirt. If you were doing pants or shorts, you'd want to imagine a crotch seam there. But right here with a skirt, you're just going to sew from the elastic down to the bottom of the skirt. It's really crucial that you stitch heavily right where the elastic is. I sometimes do a backward stitch over that with my sewing machine, or if I'm stitching by hand, I'll do a base stitch to hold that elastic in place. Alright, now I'm going to do a real fast motion of everything we just looked at. So there I am showing the little end, putting my straight pin through, and then you push the safety pin all the way through, remove it, put your straight pin through, do that tug, fold in half, and you're ready to sew up a skirt, just like you see Kaya wearing here. Now I have lots of free patterns, including the ones you see here, and many more for dolls of different shapes and sizes on Shellywood.com. So I do hope, oh, and look at these cute pants. I have a free pattern for the pants and the halter top that my Kaya doll's wearing, and the gym bag, which I got that pattern adapted from a friend. I've got a swimsuit pattern. It uses elastic in the waist and legs, and a little shorts pattern. Lots of free patterns on Shellywood.com. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos and my free patterns, remember to tell your friends about my website. You can find plenty of free patterns for doll clothes like this dress. Goodbye.